Hello everyone! When it comes to UFOs and the existence of non-human intelligence, including its interactions with humanity, many people are skeptical, and for a good reason. Not only we are talking about a major paradigm shift here, one which would be a hard pill to swallow for some, but also about completely new frontiers of science, technology and so on. And extraordinary claims like those require extraordinary evidence. When I am sometimes asked what evidence can I present, there is no other that is stronger in my opinion than the famous USS Nimitz sighting which took place in 2004. Hello everyone in this 1K subscriber special and the first deeper dive I attempted to create on this channel. In late 2004, the US Navy formation known as Carrier Strike Group 9 or CSG-9 conducted exercises in its usual area where it is regularly stationed, that is, off the west coast of the United States, relatively close to where its border with Mexico is. It was one of the first operational activities of this strike group, formed on October the 1st the same year. During the exercise, approximately from the turn of October to November, radar operators aboard the carrier group vessels, most notably USS Princeton, reported seeing formations of strange objects entering the field of vision of their equipment, and performing strange, sometimes unexplainable maneuvers in the skies above the Pacific Ocean. A notable part of this wave of radar sighting was observed on November the 10th. On that day, Chief Petty Officer Kevin Day, stationed aboard USS Princeton, observed clear radar traces of anywhere between 8 and 10 objects moving along in a loose but fixed formation, at an altitude of about 28,000 feet in the area of Catalina and San Clemente Islands, the part of the state of California. He was surprised by the relatively slow pace of the moving objects, which was recorded at 120 miles per hour, but received information of the presence of the objects he observed from radar operators aboard other vessels in the carrier strike group. The objects were also confirmed as faintly recorded by a 2C Hawkeye airplane which received the relevant coordinates from the Princeton. Kevin Day himself recounted the tale of the day in interviews, a link to one of which you can find in the comment section below. Here we can hear a short recollection of the event by Kevin himself.
With the exception of November 2004, the strike group was getting ready to go on deployment. I had already gotten orders. I was going to go work for the Admiral over at Coronado Island, Commander Naval Air Forces Pacific. And this was my last underway on a ship ever in uniform. Wow. Which is kind of weird after all that time. And my job, I was the designer for an air defense exercise, which was my bailiwick. And we had rehearsed for months, trained for months, and this was go time. I was a senior trainer. My job was to evaluate it and create a lessons learned report so the strike group could fine tune themselves and go on deployment and hopefully come back alive with nothing broken. So we were getting ready to kick off the exercise, but a few days before that, we started to notice these odd tracks. And the reason why I say odd is they were coming from low Earth orbit and coming into our radar horizon. And I'm just going to put out a number because it's already out there, 80,000 feet. And they came down in groups of 5 to 10 at a time, would sit up at altitude, and then all of a sudden they would drop down as a group, down to between 20,000 and 28,000 feet off the coast of the island, Catalina Island, and they would just sit there. And then one by one, they would, individual objects would leave the larger group, and they would transverse right through my operating area, Whiskey 291, which is right off the southwest coast of San Diego. And they would go about 100 knots, which was really strange because these things could go Mach, who knows? I mean, instantaneous flight capabilities, okay? And to this day, I don't know why they were going so slow. To catch our attention, who knows, right? But the odd thing is, Jimmy, every single one of these contacts, and if you counted them all up over the course of 10 days, about 100 contacts, separate contacts.
Wow. The sightings did not stop on the 10th of November, though, and continued over the following days. The key event, usually understood by most people as the USS Nimitz UFO sighting, took place on the 14th of November. That day, the radar personnel stationed on board the vessels of the carrier group started recording unknown objects in the vicinity of the ship formation again. The observed objects were initially spotted at an altitude of 80,000 feet or over 26 kilometers. The radar operators observed their behavior almost stupefied, even if by now they were used to it. The objects dropped from that high up in the atmosphere down to the level of 6,000 feet where they hovered. In that regard, the radar operators have also seen the objects dropping from high atmosphere levels down to the sea surface level, stopping literally 50 feet or 15 meters above the water surface and hovering there before moving onwards above the sea. As the commanders and the crew became both alert and curious and were now offered with an opportunity at potentially observing the objects up close, the decision to scramble fighter jet was made. 2 F-18A Super Hornets went airborne, one piloted by the now retired Commander David Fravor, the commander of the VFA-41 unit known as the Black Aces, and the other by his wing pilot, Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich. In addition to the pilots, the fighters had their weapon officers on board, so there were a total of 4 people in the air now. The pilot spotted one of the unknown objects, which was white and oval in shape. It hovered above a disturbance in the water, usually dubbed white water by people of the sea, indicating the presence of an object under the water surface, stirring the water just enough to see the rising of air bubbles, not unlike a whale rising up to the surface. Fravor deemed the object to be approximately 10 feet or 3 meters in length. While airborne, he made the decision to approach the object and engage it without firing any weapons. He sent his F-18A Hornet into an approach spiral towards the oval object, which seemed to have become aware of the approach and mirrored the pattern of the plane, now spiraling around the fighter jet in a peculiar dance in the air. As Commander Fravor did not show any hostile intentions, neither did the object, and the two came into a fairly close approach at one point, probably as close as 50 feet. Fravor saw the object disappear, taking off into an indistinguishable direction at a tremendous speed. While all of this was happening, the Nimitz group has sent another wave of fighters, which included the Weapons Systems Officer Chad Underwood airborne. Underwood was lucky enough to acquire a lock on the oval object and managed to record a video using his FLIR system, or a forward-looking infrared camera, and the video was later dubbed as the tic-tac video because of the shape of the peculiar object recorded in it. With the pilots still shocked with the capabilities of the unknown objects they have just tracked, less than a minute has passed before David Fravor received communications from the vessels of his strike group. The radar operators have contacted him and let him know that they have picked up the radar signature of the tic-tac shaped object. What was astonishing though was that in less than a minute from the time the object had vanished, it covered the distance of approximately 60 miles. And to add to that mystery, the object was spotted at the so-called cap point, or a point where the air patrol fighter jets are designed to meet in preparation for exercises. The thought itself was chilling. Whatever the mysterious object was, it was apparently in possession of combat mission information used by the military of the Nimitz group. The fighter pilot returned safely on board the aircraft carrier and the exercises proceeded as normal. Several days later, the sightings of strange objects stopped altogether. The story did not end here, however. In fact, it had only just begun. It is a military procedure to keep records from exercises for analysis, learning, and development purposes. This includes radar data, which is recorded and stored with high fidelity and resolution as per the procedures. The Nimitz sighting data, though, faced a different fate. According to the reports of the service people, they were approached soon after the incident by personnel who did not wear any standard uniforms or badges, and they also did not support any other form of identification of the officers. Said personnel asked the radar operators in clear but very firm and obvious terms to release and surrender the radar data they had. And thus the radar data was lost to the history. What survived though was the FLIR video recorded by Chad Underwood. Rumors floating on the internet said that the aircrews have salvaged the video by burning it onto a CD disc. This fact was initially a secret. but the whole story started unraveling in early 2007 of the above top secret website and forums. The entire site is largely dedicated to all kinds of conspiracy theories and very fringe modes of thinking. A user dubbed TFT, which is a shorthand for the final theory, posted a thread titled Observations of an Actual UFO on the 3rd of February 2007, where he claimed to have served on board the Nimitz strike group, initially explaining the story and then expounding upon it with slight changes one day later. According to the story, the UFO video was burned onto a CD as ordered by one of the senior officers who ordered installation of a CD burner with a violation of the usual IT security procedure in the military. The user mentioned seeing the video, which depicted a UFO craft exhibiting unusual movement patterns, erratic and virtually undistinguishable from teleportation. He also mentioned going to the USS Nimitz station at the port and checked and found the aforementioned CD with the recorded video. The topic and the UFO sighting returned on the forums on the 13th of February as well, again with some reductions and changes to the story and with more data provided. The post dated to the 4th of February contacted a link to a German hosting website which hosted a video file which we can now see on the screen. People frequenting the above top secret forums attempted to study and analyze the video. The community reached a conclusion relatively quickly and stated that the video is a well-doctored fake. They pointed out inconsistencies in the HUD display which did not match the actual thing used by the military, the strange angle of recording and so on. It was fairly quickly said that the story, while fascinating in its own right, is also inconsistent and changing, further discrediting the video as true. The threads became lost in the depths of other conspiracy theories posted around on the forums. Now imagine the astonishment of the users of the above top secret forums when they saw the same video resurfacing all 10 years later. It was 16th of December 2017 and the New York Times has published a momentous article written by Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal titled Glowing Auras and Black Money, the Pentagon's mysterious UFO program, the link to which is available in the comment section down below. The article included not just the first official mention of the ATIP or Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program with its $22 million budget, or the fact that the Pentagon actually had a fully functional unit dedicated to the study of UFOs. The article also included 3 famous UFO videos recorded by the military. These were the gimbal, the go fast videos, and the one we just talked about, the so-called tic-tac video. The first 2 videos were recorded in early 2015 by pilots stationed on the USS Theodore Roosevelt aircraft carrier, while the latter was the self-same video which circulated on the above top secret forums 10 years prior. As the story surrounding the New York Times publication was unveiled, it turned out that the videos were provided to the press by Christopher Mellon, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Defense and Intelligence in the Clinton and Bush the younger administrations, who in turn received the materials from Luis Elizondo, the lead person in the ATIP project we have just mentioned. The story of the UFO observed by the Nimitz strike group was thus vindicated and suddenly gained a lot of validity and traction. It was tracked back to the pilots and suddenly Alex Dietrich and David Fravor were put in the spotlight as the public became aware that there may be much more to the UFOs than the governments of the world let on. Since the story was now out in the open, the participants of the 2004 event had more liberty to talk about it. Commander David Fravor went on to the Joe Rogan Experience podcast in 2019 and talked about the event and related topics quite extensively. If you wish, you can listen to the entire interview as it is available on YouTube and Spotify. In 2019, the spokesperson for the Pentagon, Susan Goff, confirmed that the released videos were indeed recorded by naval aviators and they are part of a larger issue of a number of training range incursions by UAPs in the recent years, quote-unquote. With year 2021 seeing more UAP videos released by the Pentagon, including a triangular UAP recording and a hearing before the US Congress, the Nimitz story gained more and more attention. And this was just the prelude toward what would come in July 2023. The now famous UAP hearing involving Ryan Graves, an aviation safety activist and a former US Navy pilot and instructor, and David Grosh, the former intelligence officer who claimed under oath that non-human intelligence exists and that crashed UFOs and biologics are in the possession of the United States of America. The third witness that day was no other than Commander David Fravor himself. Let us listen to his opening statement from that day.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Congressmen, Congresswomen. I want to first thank you for the invitation to speak to the committee on the UAP topic that has been in the news for the past 6 years and seems to be continuing to gain momentum. As you know, my name is David Fravor. I'm a retired commander in the United States Navy. In 2004, I was a commanding officer of Strike Fighter Squadron 41, the world-famous Black Aces. We were attached to Carrier Wing 11, stationed on board the USS Nimitz, and had begun a 2-month workup cycle off the coast of California. On this day, we were scheduled for a 2v2 air-to-air training with the USS Princeton as our control. When we launched off Nimitz, my wingman was joining up. We were told that the training was going to be suspended and we were going to proceed with real-world tasking. As we proceeded to the west, the air controller was counting down the range to an object that we were going to, and we were unaware of what we were going to see when we arrived. The controller told us that these objects had been observed for over 2 weeks, coming down from over 80,000 feet, rapidly descending to 20,000 feet, hanging out for hours, and then going straight back up. For those who don't realize, above 80,000 feet is space. We arrived at the location at approximately 20,000 feet, and the controller called merge plot, which means that our radar blip was now in the same resolution cell as the contact. As we looked around, we noticed that we saw some whitewater off our right side. It's important to note that the weather on this day was as close to perfect as you could ask for off the coast of San Diego. Clear skies, light winds, calm seas, no whitecaps from waves. So the whitewater stood out in a large blue ocean. All 4 of us, because we were in F-18Fs, so we had pilots and Wizzo in the back seat, looked down saw a white tic-tac object with a longitudinal axis pointing north-south and moving very abruptly over the water like a ping pong ball. There were no rotors, no rotor wash, or any sign of visible control surfaces like wings. As we started clockwise towards the object, my Wizzo and I decided to go down and take a closer look with the other aircraft staying in high cover to observe both us and the tic-tac. We proceeded around the circle about 90 degrees from the start of our descent, and the object suddenly shifted its longitudinal axis, aligned it with my aircraft, and began to climb. We continued down another 270 degrees, nose low, where the tic-tac, or we considered 270 degrees to where, and we went nose low to where the tic-tac would have been. Our altitude at this point was about 15,000 feet, and the tic-tac was about 12,000. As we pulled nose onto the object, within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerated in front of us and disappeared. Our wingmen, roughly 8,000 feet above us, lost contact also. We immediately turned back to see where the whitewater was at, and it was gone also. So as we started to turn back towards the east, the controller came up and said, "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but that thing is at your cap point, roughly 60 miles away in less than a minute. You can calculate the speed." We returned to Nimitz. We were taking off our gear. We were talking to one of my crews that was getting ready to launch. We mentioned it to them, and they went out and luckily got the video that you see, that 90-second video. What you don't see is the radar tape that was never released, and we don't know where it's at, of the active jamming that the object put on an APG-73 radar, and I can get into modes later if you're interested. What is shocking to us is that the incident was never investigated. None of my crew were ever questioned. Tapes were never taken, and after a couple days, it turned into a great story with friends. It wasn't until 2009 till Jay Stratton had contacted me to investigate. Unbeknownst to all, he was part of the ATIP program in the Pentagon led by Lou Elizondo. And there was an unofficial official report that came out that's now on the internet. Years later, I was contacted by the other pilot, Alex Dietrich, and asked if I'd been contacted, and I said no, but I'm willing to talk. I was contacted by Mr. Elizondo, and we talked for a short period of time, and he said we'd be in contact. A few weeks after that, I was made aware that Lou had left the Pentagon in protest and joined forces with Tom DeLonge, Chris Mellon, Steve Justice, and others to form Two Stars Academy, an organization that pressed the issue with leading industry experts and U.S. government officials. They worked with Leslie Kean, who is present today, Ralph Blumenthal, and Helene Cooper to publish the articles in the New York Times 2017 New York Times, and it removed the stigma on the topic of UFOs, which is why we're here today. Those articles open the door for the government and public that cannot be closed. It has led to an interest from our elected officials who are not focused on little green men, but figuring out where these craft are, where they're from, the technology they possess, how do they operate. It also led to the Whistleblower Protection Act and the NDAA. There are multiple witnesses coming forward to say that that have firsthand knowledge, and Mr. Grush just covered that. What concerns me is that there's no oversight from our elected officials on anything associated with our government processing or working on craft. Believe it not, from this world. This issue is not a full public disclosure that could undermine national security, but it is about ensuring that our system of checks and balances works across all work done in the government using taxpayer funds. Relative to government programs, even unacknowledged WAVE programs have some level of oversight by the appropriate committee members in the House and Senate, and this work that is said to be occurring from whistleblower testimonies should not be exempt. In closing, I would like to say that the tic-tac object we engaged in 2004 was far superior to anything that we had on time, have today, or are looking to develop in the next 10 years. If we in fact have programs that possess this technology, it needs to have oversight from those people that the citizens of this great country elected in office to represent what is best for the United States and best for the citizens. I thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
As we have just heard, the full recollection of the event was provided to the legislators. And with the assembled representatives being on fire that day, they asked very acute and poignant questions. Fravor himself was extensively asked about his experience, its implications from the point of view of military defense capabilities and aviation at large. He stated openly it would be impossible for any nation to have an object with such capacity in 2004 and also likely in 2023, and added that if push came to shove he would be left defenseless in his F-18 Hornet. But again, let us the man speak himself.
Commander Fravor, we have all seen the floating tic-tac video that you engaged with on November 14th, 2004. Can you briefly talk about why you were off the coast of San Diego that day?
Yeah, we were at a workup with all the battle groups, so we integrate the ships with the carrier, the air wing with the carrier, and we start working. So we were doing an air-to-air defense to hone not only our skills, but those of the USS Princeton when they had been tracking them for 2 weeks. The problem was that there was never manned aircraft airborne when they were tracking them, and this was the first day, and unfortunately, we were the ones airborne and went and saw it.
Do you remember the weather that day? Was it cloudy or windy or anything out of the ordinary on the Pacific coast?
It was actually, if you're familiar with San Diego, it was a perfect day. Light winds, no whitecaps, clear skies, not a cloud. It was, for flying, it was the best.
Now, is it true that you saw, in your words, a 40-foot flying tic-tac shaped object?
That's correct. Or for some people that can't know what a tic-tac is, it's a giant flying propane tank.
Fair enough. Did this object come up on radar or interfere with your radar or the USS Princeton?
The Princeton tracked it, the Nimitz tracked it, the E-2 tracked it. We never saw it on our radars. Our fire control radars never picked it up. The other airplane that took the video did get it on a radar. As soon as it tried to lock it, it jammed the radar, spit the lock, and he rapidly switched over to the targeting pod, which you can do in the F-18.
From what you saw that day and what you've seen on video, did you see any source of propulsion from the flying object, including on any potential thermal scans from your aircraft?
No, there's none. There's no IR plume coming out, and Chad, who took the video, went through all the EO, which is black and white TV, and the IR modes, and there's no visible signs of propulsion. It's just sitting in space at 20,000 feet.
In your career, have you ever seen a propulsion system that creates no thermal exhaust?
No.
Can you describe how the aircraft maneuvered?
Abruptly, very determinate. It knew exactly what it was doing. It was aware of our presence, and it had acceleration rates. I mean, it went from 0 to matching our speed in no time at all.
Now, if the fastest plane on Earth was trying to do these maneuvers that you saw, would it be capable of doing that?
No, not even close.
And just to confirm, this object had no wings, correct?
No wings.
Now, was the aircraft that you were flying, was it armed?
No, never felt threatened at all.
If the aircraft was armed, do you believe that your aircraft or any aircraft in possession of the United States could have shot the tic-tac down?
I'd say no. Just on the performance, it would have just left in a split second.
It looks like that we have a problem here that needs further investigation.
Yes.
In your belief, is this flying tic-tac, I mean, is it capable of being the product of any other nation on the Earth?
No, like I said earlier, I think it defies current material science and the ability to develop that much propulsion. And I know there's been some physicists have done calculations, which is beyond anything that we have.
Well, either the United States has an adversary here in this world that we don't know, or we really have some serious investigations to do. I really appreciate you being here. Is there anything else about the November 14th, 2004 incident that you think is important for this committee to know that you haven't been asked here today?
No, it's been said it's probably the most credible UFO sighting in history based on all the sensors that were tracking it, and then for us to get visual and to go against the naysayers that it's something on the screen or whatever. I mean, there's 4 sets of human eyeballs. We're all very credible. Of the 6 of us that were involved in the thing, including the video, every one of us is going to do 20 plus years in the military in very responsible positions. So I'd say the world needs to know that.
The available data from the encounter was taken to the proverbial drawing board by a physics professor, Kevin Knowles. Kevin analyzed the available data as indicated by the sensors, as told by the pilots and the radar operators. His curiosity led to amazing results, which were presented during the 2023 Sol Foundation conference. It would seem that to pull off the feats of the flight exhibited by the tic-tac object are under certain assumptions regarding its weight and the best possible approximation of its speed and acceleration, it would have to use a drive operating on gigajoule scales of energy. As Kevin put it bluntly, the energy output of the drive would be on the order of 10 times the combined output of all the nuclear power plants in the USA. The resulting acceleration would be enough to turn any biological form of life known to us into a pulp in a fraction of a second. And yet the object was clearly under intelligent control. Just let all that sink in for a moment. Arguably, this is one of the most credible UFO testimonies on the record in history. Provided by a service person with impeccable service record, distinguished and in command of the most advanced aircraft at the time. Someone who has seen virtually everything possible in the air, and thus, it would be impossible for people like Fravor, Alex Dietrich or Chad Underwood, not to mention the radar operations like Kevin Day, to have mistaken the tic-tac object for a balloon or a conventional aircraft of another time. Moreover, there are other reports of oval-shaped or tic-tac-shaped objects, further corroborating the 2004 event. With the Pentagon confirming the video as real, the event was also confirmed as having taken place. The Congress has the story in its official records as well. The UFO community at large is also enthralled with the Nimitz encounter. A large group of UFO enthusiasts, yours truly included, points out that particular event as the one they consider to be the most credible in human history. Quite frankly, whenever someone asks the question which UFO event would be the most convincing one for anyone new to the topic or skeptical, I point out the Nimitz incident. It is a purely nuts and bolts encounter, which means a physical craft, with observable characteristics, and characteristics which we still cannot explain with all the recent advances in physics and in material science. We have as credible witnesses of the event as it possibly gets, and so far no explanation. With the recent waves of unusual sightings around the globe, and with the channel reaching 1,000 subscribers just a few days ago, I thought a deeper dive into this case could be a nice way of saying thank you to each and every one of you who have watched the videos and who dare to explore the subject, which sadly still bears a lot of stigma, but one which is also inevitably breaking the ice and keeps on gaining momentum as exotic and anomalous evidence piles up. Everyone around claims that 2025 is going to be a very interesting year on the disclosure front, which I also hope for. Thank you so much for all the support, for watching, liking, subscribing and commenting. Have a wonderful new year, may all your dreams and plans come true, and I hope to meet you all in many new videos to come. Take care and see you soon in another video.